everyone. I am Dr. Shalu Sachdeva and I will be talking about the topic of bioinorganic chemistry. Now, as the name suggests, bioinorganic is related to the role of metal ions in our biosystem. It is irrespective whether it is the human biosystem or even the plants. As the definition of bioinorganic chemistry goes, that we all know that carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen and oxygen, they are the usual constituents of the biological systems. The majority of the elements apart from the above four, which are non-metals, are metals. So, the chemistry of metals is included in bioinorganic chemistry. There are macronutrients and micronutrients which are involved in the biological system. Apart from carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen and oxygen, which are also termed as the building blocks, there are other elements which are required by the biosystem. They are termed as macronutrients, which are required by the body in large amounts, and these include sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, iron, phosphorus, sulfur and chlorine. Then there are micronutrients which are required by the body in smaller amounts, which include vanadium, chromium, manganese, cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc, molybdenum, tungsten, fluorine, iodine and silicon. And bioinorganic chemistry is concerned with the compounds or ions of all these elements. And the biological system is a very unique system in the sense that it is stabilized by a kinetic equilibrium in which there is a constant flow of energy and nutrients in and out and within the system. The energy which is required by the system is being generated whenever it is being needed. The biological system is in a reduced entropy state. By the word reduced entropy state, we mean that it is a stable state or in a minimum random state, and it maintains itself in that state at the expense of the surroundings. That is, the entropy of the surroundings is always increasing, whereas the entropy of the biological system is minimum. By entropy we mean the randomness of the system. Metals have a variety of role to play in the biological system, and these include roles like the structural role. Metals like calcium, which are present in the teeth and bones, provide a structural framework of the body. The peptide residues, which are present in macromolecules, get their structural rigidity from metals like copper and zinc, which tie up these residues, and as a result of this they give a structural framework to the peptide residues also. So, in this way metals like calcium and zinc and copper and many others provide structural rigidity. The second role played by the metals is the regulatory role. The movement of metal ions like sodium ions and potassium ions through the cell membranes gives signals for the maintenance of osmotic pressure of the body. Sodium ions and potassium ions, they are required by the body for maintaining the blood pressure or the osmotic pressure, as we say, and there is a concentration which is fixed required for sodium ions which are needed to be present outside the cell, and potassium ions which are needed to be present inside the cell. So, this varied concentration helps to maintain the blood pressure of the body, and the inflow and outflow of metal ions like calcium and magnesium also provides signals for metabolic processes to take place. Movement of calcium in the biological system, movement of magnesium ions in the biological system as well as in plants. Another role which is played by metals is the catalytic role inside the biological system. Many enzymes which have metal ions are called metalloenzymes, and the metal in that case has a very vital role to play. That vital role is that the metal behaves as a catalyst for a number of biological reactions or metabolic reactions, as we say. Vitamin B12 coenzyme is a cobalt containing macromolecule which catalyzes a number of reactions in the body. Vitamin B12 as such is unreactive, but its coenzyme which is cobalt containing, again the role of metal ions or bio-inorganic chemistry comes into play over here. It contains a macromolecule which catalyzes a number of reactions. Many other enzymes which catalyze hydrolysis reactions, oxidation reactions and reduction reactions in the body contain metal ions like copper and zinc, molybdenum, copper and others, to name a few. Another role is the electron transfer role, the involvement of metals in electron transfer. Metals which are present in biomolecules like cytochrome which is involved in respiratory enzymes, ferredoxin which is again a part of the plants, and azurin serve as sites for electron transfer reactions. And such kind of a role, that is electron transfer role, is generally played by transition metals. Transition metals play the redox roles or electron transfer meaning redox roles, where reduction as well as oxidation takes place simultaneously. Now, the transition metal ions play such kind of roles generally because they have a number of unpaired electrons. Hence, they can give as well as take electrons from their orbitals. So, hence they can get oxidized as well as they can get reduced easily. The next role which is played by the metal ions is the oxygen carrier role. Metal ions are very important as oxygen carriers, especially as we all know iron, which is a constituent of blood. All aerobic forms of life, they require oxygen to be transported from the site of entry, that is the lungs, from where the oxygen enters into the system, to all parts of the body, that is the tissues where oxygen needs to be utilized. The oxygen which is being utilized is providing energy for our day-to-day activities through respiration. There are three main oxygen carrier molecules which are present in the biological system. The first is hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, which is present in the blood in all the higher animals, contains iron. Hemerythrin, is also present in certain lower animals, which contains again iron. And third one is hemocyanin, which is containing copper, also termed as blue blood, present in lower animals like arthropoda and mollusks. They have the blood which is colored blue because of the presence of cyanin and copper. Copper is the essential element which is providing the blue color of the blood. Another role in storage of oxygen which is played by metals is that oxygen, whenever it is taken in the system through the lungs and transported to the tissues, it also needs to be stored in the muscles for our day-to-day activities. The oxygen which needs to be stored is acting as a reservoir of energy. The form in which oxygen is stored in the body is myoglobin. Just like we discussed in the previous slide, the form in which oxygen is taken or present in the body, or iron is present in the body, is hemoglobin. The form in which oxygen is stored in the body is myoglobin. This myoglobin is a protein which contains iron. Also, iron is stored in the form of ferritin in the body. Ferritin is a protein which stores iron and provides iron to the bone marrow whenever needed for the formation of new RBCs, red blood cells. The protein which picks up iron from ferritin and transfers it to the bone marrow is called transferrin, and that protein is also basically storing iron. The next important role which is played by metals is as a site for photoredox reactions. Chlorophyll, which is present in the plants and contains magnesium ions, traps the sunlight for the process of photosynthesis and helps in a number of redox reactions taking place in the plants. And again, the role of the metal ion, which is magnesium, comes into being over here. Once we have discussed the role of the metal ions in the body, we have come to know that how inorganic metal ions are so very important for the whole structural framework, for sustaining respiration, for formation of new red blood cells, and for carrying out a number of metabolic reactions inside the body. After this, we need to know that what are metallobiomolecules, which are huge molecules, as by the name biomolecules, which contain metal ions in the biosystem and play a variety of functions. These metallobiomolecules can be both proteins as well as non-proteins. Metallobiomolecules, as just mentioned, can be both proteins as well as non-proteins. The protein part of metallobiomolecules includes enzymes like hydrolysis. Whenever the word ases is coming into being, it means enzymes. Hydrolysis, which catalyze a number of hydrolysis reactions in the body. Oxidoreductases, which catalyze a number of oxidation reduction reactions in the body. Isomerases, which catalyze a number of isomerization reactions in the body. And synthases, which catalyze a number of synthesis reactions in the body. These all roles are played by proteins, which are metallobiomolecules. Apart from this, proteins play important role in storage and structure of various molecules required. That means they are storage and structural proteins which are involved in metal storage, oxygen carrier and storage of oxygen, structural proteins, and proteins involved in carrying signals for metabolic reactions to take place. The proteins which are involved in carrying signals, they are carrying signals from the place where the actual protein is working and to all the places where reactions are to be taking place. Metallobiomolecules include the non-proteins also, whose role is storage and structural role, which include, as written, include the storage and structural ones, and again those involved in photoredox reactions, redox reactions taking place in the presence of light. These roles are played by non-protein parts. The metals as such are not distributed throughout the system. Instead, they have specific locations in the biological system. So, the location of metals in the biological system is specified or is present according to their roles in the biological system. The metals may be present in the extracellular fluid. They may be present in the cell membranes, in the cytoplasmic fluid, and in the organelles like nuclei and mitochondria. When we are talking about metals being present in the extracellular fluid, this is the fluid which is surrounding the cell. Between each cell in the biological system is a fluid where metal ions are present and they exhibit their function through that place. When we talk about the metal ions being present in the cell membranes, we are specifying that the metal ions which are there are present in the cell or in its semi-permeable membrane, and in the cytoplasmic fluid and nuclei and mitochondria, which are the parts of the cell. The metal ion can be present anywhere in these four categories depending upon their role which they have to play in the biological system. Now, when we have talked about metallobiomolecules, we have discussed the protein part of the metallobiomolecules, which are involved in a number of reactions inside the body. The proteins include enzymes. Enzymes actually are biological proteins which catalyze a number of reactions, metabolic reactions inside the body. The enzymes which are involved in oxidation reduction reactions in the body are called oxidoreductases, where we talk about oxidation reduction or those enzymes which are involved in redox reactions in the body. The example of such enzymes include oxygenases, which require the presence of oxygen, hydrogenases, nitrogenases, and so on, and all of them include metal ions like iron, molybdenum, copper, cobalt, and so on. And all these ions which are playing the role of oxidoreductases or which are involved in redox reactions in the body have a minimum of 2 stable oxidation states. As we know, in oxidation and reduction, there is a loss of electron as well as gain of electron. So, therefore, when a metal ion has 2 stable oxidation states, then only it can switch between those 2 stable oxidation states by gaining or by losing electrons. For example, iron, which is having 2 stable oxidation states, as in case of ferrous, which is Fe2 plus, and ferric, which is Fe3 plus. Another kind of enzymes are those which are involved in hydrolysis reactions in the body, and these enzymes are called hydrolyses. The examples of such enzymes include carboxypeptidases, which contain zinc, and aminopeptidases, which contain zinc, magnesium, and so on. Carboxypeptidase is an enzyme which catalyzes the hydrolysis of peptide bonds in the biological system to produce amino acids. We all know amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, and then they build up to give long peptide chains. So, hydrolysis of peptides first produces proteins, which in turn further on hydrolysis give amino acids and produce a lot of energy in the system, which keeps our day-to-day activities and all the metabolic functions going on. Those enzymes which are involved in synthesis reactions in the body, there are a number of synthesis reactions which are taking place, number of things which are being manufactured, which are being synthesized in the body. Such enzymes are called isomerases and synthases. Isomerases are those enzymes which are causing number of isomerization reactions in the body, change in the structures of various units in the body, which are proceeding on for the metabolic reactions to take place, and synthases, which are catalyzing a number of synthesis reactions in the body. Now, as we all know, enzymes are all catalysts, biological catalysts. So, these are all catalyzing the reactions inside the body, and they are actually not taking part in the reactions. They are simply speeding up or catalyting, they have a catalytic action on the reactions. Examples of isomerases and synthases include aconitase is an enzyme which contains iron, and of course vitamin B12 coenzyme which contains cobalt. And as already mentioned, vitamin B12 coenzyme is a very important enzyme which is involved in a number of metabolic reactions, catalyzes a number of reactions in the body. Those enzymes which are involved in oxidation and reduction reactions in the body are called oxidoreductases. Apart from this, when we talk about enzymes, then enzymes also include proteins, which are storage and structural proteins. Storage and structural proteins, which include cytochromes, ferredoxins, azurin, and stellocyanin, are the electron carrier enzymes having iron and copper. And there are other examples of oxygen binding enzymes which are myoglobin, hemoglobin, and hemerythrin, which contain iron and copper. That's all. Thank you.